I'm Professor Kit Nagel from Concordia, Irvine, small private school in between here and LA. We are a residential campus, so very different from this place. We are one of 9 Concordias across the country. Just like the Loyolas are Jesuit tradition, as is Fairfield. The Concordias are all Lutheran tradition, and the Jesuits and the Lutherans do education pretty well. Just saying. Okay. I'm here not as a tech person. I'm here just as a fellow faculty member and to sort of exchange notes and what's going on our campus or what we're doing. So hopefully that'll be useful. Additionally, I've only got 25 minutes to talk. I teach at the undergraduate and MBA. I can go for 4 hours without really worrying about it. So this is painful for me to try and cut this. So I'll be whipping through some things, and if the more interesting thing for me and probably for you will be the Q&A. So we'll try and do that, and if we don't have time for that, you can always do that offline any time. So looking at this interface of the global business and the academy, one of the nice things about being full professor and all that, I get sabbatical and am available to work. And corporations are very interested in getting business professors on sabbatical, so network, and they'll love to have you. And I did mine with Bayer Pharma in Berlin. And so what they were looking for, and again, interrupt me anytime if there's a point, but my benefit from doing this was to work alongside senior management at Bayer, learning where they excelled and getting a further appreciation for German business. My corporate background, I was with International Paper Company. I was marketing manager for Asia. Pretty arrogant title, 1.4 billion Chinese renminbi. Thank you. But so I teach international marketing, I teach international finance, teach both undergraduate and MBA. Very interesting, just what Tom was saying earlier, there was this big swing to digitalize everything, and now it's going much more back to a hybrid model. And international business, where I live, is not done online. You don't negotiate with the French Moroccan on a frickin' iPad. You don't. You've got to be in the real world, right? Rollover business, fine, but the actual business doing the deal is always face to face. Same thing in Europe, same thing when Bayer is global. So my benefit was to really ensure I'm up to date with supply chain management thinking. I'm basically a marketer who knows finance, but supply chain management was somewhere that they knew that they didn't know. They knew that they were inefficient, and they needed an outside perspective. So I wanted to look at them and gauge their ability. I come from a perspective looking at the Toyota Kanban system of continuous improvement, always looking for muda, always looking for waste. It's an ongoing thing. Amazon is actually really focused on this. And see how they could, their current KPIs, how they will be helping with their businesses. Their perspective, they're going to, again, my background, International Paper Company, big time corporate, Fortune 100, what my Dean Wright calls big iron. He comes from Rio Tinto. This is real industry. This is a real deal. This is not like sitting in a place with Google playing ping pong. I mean, this is actual stuff moving, real industry. And they wanted somebody from the real industry with international experience. And my background at IP was in consumer packaging. And so that's very much part of the supply chain. And also my great value was I didn't know anything about pharma. And so I wanted to learn another industry, but I could, you can think about this. I could ask the stupid questions, right? That a manager that's been in that industry for 10 years, would be embarrassed to ask. Well, I have no shame anyway. So I could ask, why are you doing this? And they say, well, for 20 years we've been doing it. I said, yeah. Why are you doing this? Well, for 20 years So my role actually from Dieter Weinand, who's the head of pharma, it's a 40 billion euro business. It's big time. Said your role is to challenge everything. Your role is to be a provocateur. And the further value is academic value. Is that hopefully I can convey. Hopefully I can teach. So the takeaways from my time at Bayer, I can convince them and talk to them about what they ought to be doing, right? And at the MBA level and at the upper level undergraduates, that's the point, right? You're going to get asked, what ought we to be doing in the future? It's not monkey see, monkey do. What is status quo? And so that was what they were looking for. So they based me in Berlin, and they were really nice to me. I can't say how nice in front of my dean here, but they were nicer to me than he is. And got a really nice office, really good admin staff, really good IT. Had no issues with, expenses, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, they could not have been nicer. And so I just want to give a flavor of this sabbatical and then we can get to what were takeaways. But at a very full schedule, and I met with nearly every senior manager at Bayer. It started out with group meetings, and then we'd get on one-on-ones for lunch. It got a little tiring, but it was priceless. It was priceless for me, and my focus was on in the area of Xarelto. It's a blockbuster therapy. If you know anybody that's had heart issues or heart surgery, they are on Xarelto today. That's by itself, that's a $4 billion piece of business. And they have seriously, half jokingly said, kid, if you can help us save a fraction of a percent in efficiencies on a €4 billion business, it would be good. It would be good. So I was scheduled also into a number of plants, and some were the first two I went to, I was not impressed, okay? My background is in USDA, FDA, or pasteurized milk ordinance production, serious production, okay? Bayer is brilliant at the core competencies of the chemistry and the science, and then scaling from the lab to making billions of therapies, billions of tablets. Brilliant. Out of my competency, but brilliant. Production floor, packaging floor, not so much. In fact, not so much. And it was striking to me that with these blockbuster therapies, it's actually a very risky business. Only 1 in 10 therapies actually becomes cash positive. They have lost over, I'm not supposed to really say this because I signed a CDA, but they lost like close to €1 billion on one product that didn't work. B is a big number, yes? Okay, so, they have to, I'm not being an apologist for that business, but when they have a blockbuster, they've got to make the margins because it takes so long to get it to market, and only 1 in 10 is cash positive. So I have sympathy for them, but I'm not an apologist for the industry. After I speak German, so after I was on the shop floor at 2 places, I started asking operational questions on plant layouts and things, and they said, oh, this guy's not a tourist. So then they've had me visit plants from Finland to Italy, and this was magic for me, and really was the area where that I thought I could help them. So first off, really, that's sort of the framework for where we were. Anticipated findings, as expected, they're brilliant in chemistry and science, has great people, great competencies, and they have more PhDs per square foot of any corporation I've ever seen. Amazing talent. But in science and technology and chemistry, and in the supply chain area, they had a Dr. Scheckenbach in supply chain. He actually was one of the, SAP is a German company. He was one of the core people that developed SAP, and he wrote the modeling solver. Yeah, way smarter than me. And then they had Dr. Samantha, literally a credential guru in SC analytics. So I had been prepared to help them better align their operations and the demand functions through the digital space. And they thought I would see issues or opportunities. And so I prepared to myself really to look over their SAP APO, their ERP and MRP systems. But the actual findings, and given, yes, they're a top tier company, but when I went back to the senior management and I said, okay, I could spend my months with you getting down in the weeds with enterprise software and helping align that with the markets and so forth. But actually, my value added will be better fixing issues, okay? And beyond the science and their stunning excellence in bulk production, as I mentioned before, they were not distinctive. They were not world-class. They were not efficient in the production operations, and also they did not relate well. They didn't talk to themselves. This is one of the takeaways. Great company, they didn't talk to themselves. So operations didn't talk to the marketing crazies, right? And when I was marketing manager for Asia, I was on a first name basis with all the plant managers in the US and in Asia. Why? Because stuff happens, right? And then you build trust and you can work it through. But they actually wouldn't, they were so siloed and so smart, they didn't talk to each other. Okay, this is a big takeaway. This is a serious company. Okay, so from an instructional point of view, from an outcomes point of view, people should talk to each other. So one of the real benefits of that takeaway was I was really pleased with the program at Concordia because, like most undergraduate programs, you get a taste of the different disciplines within business, and then with a capstone, you're supposed to integrate them. Okay, I just want to underline that in spades, that you have a great company, hugely successful company, but it didn't talk to itself, and therefore was sub-optimizing. Okay, and I beat them up on this. Okay, so they also had bought too much into the mantra that the answer to everything is digital, right? So they were paying millions of euros to our friends at McKinsey and Company and Porsche and Company, all this kind of stuff, and let's roll out, let's run LlamaSoft with an AI kicker, and let's have some bots do this, and we're going to blockchain this over here, and we're going to run like hell. Okay, complete bullshit. This is a technical term. Okay, because that kind of stuff is really useful, and that can improve and tailor and tweak your operation. You can get 2, 3, 4, 8% improvement in efficiency. Okay. Separately, and this is sort of confidential, so you're on your honor, but they also, using consultants, had laid out their packaging lines, okay? And why? Because they had chemists and really good PhDs running their plants who didn't know how to run a plant. And these are big plants. These are billion-dollar plants, and they got not to knock PhDs, but I'm never going to have a PhD running my plant. I'm going to have some guy with, going to kick it, right? All right. So Anyway, the thing was they were running equipment about 45% efficiency, OEE, okay, when in my world you run 80% efficient. And the problem wasn't the people. The problem is never the people, right? Deming said, you know, a bad system, right? You know the quote, right? Will defeat any people, any good people. And so the kicker here is that they had the wrong equipment on the floor to run efficiently. It's complicated. I did sign a CDA, so I can't really get into it. But if I can, and they're moving now to change how they lay out their plants and how they run or multiple lines of equipment, not just one big honking one. So when that goes down, what happens to the plant? Because this big mantra, oh, I want to get lowest cost per unit. That sounds good. Yeah, that's really good if you're running one SKU. What happens if you're running 600 SKUs? Oh, right. So I can get, this is arrogant, I can get them from a 45 to 80% efficiency by just changing their capital base, right? As opposed to spending a zillion with McKinsey on LlamaSoft with an AI kicker is going to get you 2 or 3% on improving your scheduling. Okay. So this is where I think I was useful to them. And again, they thought, you know, the mantra of digital is going to fix everything. And I loved it. I quoted Vince Lombardi. I said, excellence is achieved by mastery of the fundamentals. They hadn't got the fundamentals right. You can always do this stuff to get that final 6, 7, 8%. Fundamentals weren't right. Okay. They also were saying that when I got there in this past spring, oh, we got this big capacity constraint. We got a capacity constraint. And people said it enough, they were believing it. And so, and then crazy American professor comes over. Again, I do have a background in production and this interface of marketing with the real world. And just to be a provocateur, I said, actually, you don't have a capacity issue. Okay, that kind of surprised them. I also said that their inventories were out of control. They were doing a 9-month carry. In my world, we look at inventory turns, yeah? Okay. The profit margin is so high, okay, that you don't need to be efficient. Okay, which is another, I don't know, it's truth now for me, is just because you're profitable doesn't mean you're efficient. Okay. Also, their cost accounting was almost non-existent, and this is where my Dean George Wright really helped me with activity-based costing. I knew the issues, but I'm not an accountant, but he helped me be credible with Bayer, and they're moving now with ABC, activity-based costing, because you could just see it, and you tie that in with the Toyota Kanban of multiple handlings, right, that are unnecessary or unnecessary complexity. You know, so you can produce 10 different avenues to produce a therapy. That's great. Actually, you can do it in 5, but we're going to do it in 10. Okay. So the complexation, and again, we came up this. It's not really good English, but we came up with this need for decomplexation at Bayer, and fortunately, they bought into it. Okay. The actual findings, I'll give just a quote from Wolfram Carius, who was the head of global supply chain. And this was after I had done I think some of the best work I'd ever done. Now that I'm old, and you know, I can, as a professor, I'm getting better at explaining stuff, right? So they could move forward. And so this is from Carius. He said, "Thank you so much for your kind, open, and direct feedback. This is exactly what we are looking for. Your statements are more than welcome." So this is actually very I honor them because I was busting them. I was beating them up on a range of issues. And I loved his term where he said, clear that we make our world miserable. This is him talking, due to unrewarded complexity. And there is this perverse management thing where we're really good at managing complexity, all right? Okay, and obviously the world shouldn't, I come around and say, actually, you don't need to be so complex in the first place, all right? The further strange thing is, if we can make this more complicated and invest in more complicated stuff, we're just going to be even better managers. That's a perverse incentive, and I think it's real, okay? So if we can't do blockchain, if we can't do digital, if we can't do AI, we must not be good managers. So let's go, we'll do that stuff, spend a fortune, get 2% more efficient, but not get the fundamentals right where I'm operating at 40% efficiency on my plant 4, where crazy Nagel comes in and says, why aren't you hitting 80? And it's a complicated issue about layouts, about the different kinds of equipment. But, I'm not a Luddite here. I love digital, but it ain't the answer if you don't have the fundamentals right. Wanted to say that one of the plants I went to, I had to have special clearance. Even the normal managers in Berlin were not allowed to go to this plant. So I went to this plant and I had to have training. I had to take a test, which I actually failed, okay, because it was in German. My German's decent, it's not great, but they were asking me all this stuff in German. And then I failed it again. And then the guy was sitting next to me not telling me how to complete it. So, but it was truly remarkable. At their high end in what's called the API, Active Pharmaceutical Agreement, ingredients, it is stunning what they have. This is their core competency. Again, the APIs and the ability to scale from the lab to true global production. Fall down amazing. Truly impressive. And so some of these medicines take actually 2 years through different chemical reactions and development and reactives to produce. And they have ways, so that can take a year or more to make some 2 years, but a year or more to make a specific product. They have ways where there's normally 10 steps. They will integrate with organic chemistry. Remember organic chemistry? That tends to blow students up. You can, within this phasing, you can use specific yeasts and molds, and where it would take 3 steps chemically, you can do it 1 step organically, and therefore shrink the timeline. This is fall down brilliant. So that's their competency. The competency is not operations, and that's where I can help them. And then also the interface where I worked on was interface with the market and having feedback from the market into operations, supply chain to the market. This sounds obvious and simple. It's not. It's hard, right? You got a big corporation. So a couple. Again, I've got to cut this short. So. Couple key takeaways. One was huge endorsement of, I think, what you all do, and also at Concordia, is this exposure across all the disciplines in accounting, finance, marketing, management, stats, big data, economics. Bayer had brilliant people, but their expertise and interactions were siloed, and they didn't think beyond their silo. And they wouldn't think through the knock-on effect of an action over here. What would it do? What would it do there? And it was kind of painful to watch. So just underlying the breadth of business programs is huge. Okay. Second thing is, I hope I've made it clear, Bayer is vulnerable because it doesn't talk to itself. And so we need to ensure that students have real skills. So I think it was mentioned here earlier, it's okay, I have written skills, we actually have to have oral skills. And in my world, it's cross-cultural, it's international, and that's the value added. So I don't know how you do that digitally. Maybe you do that in a blended hybrid thing, but you've got to be able to that's when you get paid six figures like next Thursday, is when you can bridge cultures and you can talk to speeds and feeds, right? But you can also speak English and talk to people, right? And have those people skills. So you need to be cross-culturally sensitive with clients, vendors, and folks even in with your divisions of your own company. Third thing was we need, as Concordia, we need to do a better job in using enterprise software. Our students do really well when they graduate, and they're in banking and and J&J and Deloitte and all this. But I think they would be better prepared, and we're moving, I think, in this is to use some kind of modular thing with SAP. As you know, it's widely used across industries. 87% looked it up of Ford's Global 2000 use SAP, and from Bayer to Nestle use it. So that's one thing that was a takeaway for me. Final semi-final thing was that Bayer had SAP brilliant people. Right? Absolutely fall down brilliant people. However, actual shop floor scheduling, actual shop floor production, Excel. All right? So your students, also, like Bank of America and Wells Fargo, Excel is how those banks talk to themselves. So people say, well, Excel is old hat. No, it's not. If it's used on the shop floor of Bayer Garbonate in Italy, and if it's used at Wells Fargo, it's not old hat. And I use it and I teach it in market research. And I just want to underline that why is Excel so good? Because it's intuitive and it's bulletproof. And you don't have to spend 1.7 million euros to McKinsey to give you a business grade solution. So that was for me a very interesting takeaway. So SAP is wonderful, right? But there's certain blind spots for it. It doesn't integrate with actual production. Doesn't integrate well with shipping. Okay, and the benefit of Excel is anybody can use it if they've been trained. Somebody in Okinawa can use it. Someone in Shanghai. Someone in Berlin. Anyway, I've got to stop. If there are questions, I've probably blown my time, so if there are questions, happy to take them on or offline. But this was just one of these things to kind of share what another fellow member of the IACBE is doing, and staying current with SCM and connecting with big corporate.